2.0. Here's a few links that are useful for you or can be useful. If you want to watch, try Django 1.10, which I recommend prior to upgrading it. You would go to either joincfe.com or joincfe.com/YouTube. It lives in both places, and you can learn how to actually build what the project is specifically. So for our purposes of upgrading, we are going to grab the code from GitHub. That is what I recommend, even if you went through Try Django 1.10. For the purpose of this video, grab the actual final code from GitHub, because that's what we'll be upgrading. And I promise you that won't have the upgraded code. We will not do that. I'm not pushing that there. That code is done. The next thing is going to our live streams. So if you need questions answered, our live streams or our Slack channel, both of those things can help you get questions answered so you can get your projects out there. Okay, so now I'm just going to go ahead and look at the repo that I'm using. This is it right here, Try Django 1.10. And the project itself might not be something that you're super interested in, but this is much more about upgrading from a previous version of Django to a newer version of Django. Although the only reason I'm showing you this is so you guys can do it yourself. Most of the time I would recommend that you upgrade it to an LTS version, which is, in my case right now, is Django 1.11. But I'm going to be upgrading to 2.0 because that's been a common request. And also I just want to show you just generally how to do it and how you would diagnose problems along the way. So we also have done this for upgrading Try Django 1.11 to Django 2.0. So we have a video of that on YouTube as well. So if you go to our YouTube, joincfe.com/YouTube, you can look for the upgrading Django 1.11 to 2.0. And we'll probably have a few others as well. Okay, so back into my GitHub. I'm going to go ahead and copy this link here. And I'm going to jump into where my project is, which I haven't actually set up the project yet. All I've done is put a folder for Try Django 1.10, and I'm currently in that folder with nothing in there. So I'm going to do git clone that link and then a period at the end to clone into the current folder. So I did this to really just copy and paste all that code. It's not really copy and paste, but download all the code. So if you don't know how to use Git, you can just use and download the zip and then bring it into the folder you need. So from here, of course, I need to activate a virtual env. And in my case, I only have Python 3 on here. So that might cause an issue in the upgrading process. It's very possible. I actually don't remember which version of Python I used in Try Django 1.10. It's probably version 3, but I think Try Django 1.9 is not. So anyways, virtual env, period, again, to put it in the same directory. And yes, I'm using Python 3.6. Of course, I could use a different version, but this is all about upgrading. So it makes sense for me to use a better version of Python as well. And actually, going into Python 2, I have to use version 3. I think it's 3.5 and up, but check the documentation to make sure. Okay, so now I have Python version 3. So I'm going to go ahead and activate that environment with scripts activate. And of course, if you're on Mac or Linux, you just do source bin/activate. You probably already know that. Okay, so I list everything out and I see that of course, my project is activated. And if I change into my src folder, I have a requirements.txt file in there. So we'll do pip install -r requirements.txt. It's absolutely possible that some things just don't get installed. That is something that I will have to think about when it happens. So I haven't done this. This is completely a live upgrade. I really haven't even prepared for it because it's not something you really need to prepare for, to be honest with you. But I've done it a few times, so I'm more familiar with this process. But if you guys want to get better at it, just grab a bunch of these older projects, upgrade them, downgrade them, do all sorts of things there to see if you can make it happen. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to go back into my Try Django project, and I want to open up the Sublime work. Oh, wait, not the work. We don't have to use the workspace necessarily, but I can. Okay, so now I've got my workspace here. It looks like it doesn't even have the folder itself, so let's try the project file. And again, it's not showing me any of the stuff, so that's okay. I'll just go into project, and then add folder to project. And oops, you guys can't see that. Okay, and then into try Django 1.10, select folder, and there we go. I'm gonna remove this other folder. Okay, so now we've got our project in here. Let's just check the progress of the installs. Looks like everything's good. So I'm gonna go ahead and do pip freeze. Cool, I've got everything. And then I'll just run python manage.py, run server. I could run migrations and make migrations, but I just want to make sure that all this stuff works. So now going into my local host, let's just check it out. And it's giving me a redirect to a different URL. Yeah, so that was something I set up in there. It's probably not something I want anymore, at least for my local settings. And I have settings.py here, so it's not in that. It's probably in host conf URL. So default redirect URL, what's that? Let's look in our settings. It's most likely ter. And in my case, I'm just gonna put a star here. So again, being that it's an older project, it doesn't have all of the settings the way that I do it now. So default redirect is going to this other domain name, which, you know, is not what I want. I want to use HTTP 127.0.0.1. And then obviously when you go live, you'd want the actual live URL. And the same thing, I want to put this in where this one is. Now, the reason I know this is because I built this project. So you wouldn't necessarily know that, but you would have to start to, you know, figure out why this thing is redirecting in a different place. And it looks like it's now redirecting me more. So I'm going to pause it and figure out the problem. Okay, so I thought the problem was relying in here. It actually is based off of the Django hosts. So this is a third-party package that allows you for hosting related stuff. So it's actually this right here. What this does is it takes me to a different URL, which is here, and then it actually redirects a subdomain to my main www domain. That is not something I need to worry about really for this one. So what I'm just going to do is literally change it to my regular configuration. Now, if you went through Try Django 1.10 and you were able to get all those things set up, that's fine. But changing it to this configuration should allow it to show up. And you know, there it is. It does it almost immediately. So the redirects no longer take effect. And actually, this no longer matters either. So that can be ignored. Okay, so the project seems to be running. It doesn't seem to look that great, but that's not the purpose here. The purpose is to upgrade Django. So let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to close out my server here and do pip install Django ==. Well, what version of Django are we going to use? Let's jump into the Django project for that. If I click on download for the latest release, I have Django 2.0.4. Now, after you watch this video, I would recommend trying whatever newest version of Django is, like when this LTS comes out in 2019, which is like a year from now. But when that one comes out, try it. Try doing what I'm about to do with this exact project. Okay, so Django 2.0.4, and then that's just how you declare which version you want. And that should actually get us to the version that we're working with here. Now, I already know a few things that are going to happen right off the bat. First of all, my URLs, wherever my URLs are, the path has changed a little bit, and you have the ability to use different kinds of URLs. So I can go ahead and do from Django.urls import re path, as well as just path. So if I want to just use just path, I can change this to just being in here, just one string. Oops, too much selecting there. So no longer a regular expression, but just a string here. And we can say admin. I believe we can put a trailing slash in there, so let's just do it. So now I've got that. Django 2.0 is still installing on my end, so I'll let that keep going. And the regular expression, so this one right here for this short code, yes, this is a more of a complex regular expression, so I will need that one. So we'll change it to re path. And then finally, my home view, I can leave it as path. And then I believe all I would need to do here is put a slash. Personally, I don't like RE path that much. Or sorry, personally, I don't like path that much. I like regular expression paths. I think they're more robust, and therefore you can do more things with them. But you might like regular paths. You might like writing a string. And I'm pretty sure that you have to include the slash to make it work. But that's something we'll test. We'll test that in just a moment. The next thing is other places of URLs. So again, we want to do from Django.urls import re path and replace the other instances of that URL, because that's what it's going to be going forward. They've made that change pretty clear. And that's in the documentation. If you were confused about that at all, it might actually even bring up a warning for us. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and do python manage.py, make migrations. I already know that there's going to be a few things that definitely don't work. One of them is reverse. Okay, so Django core URL resolvers import reverse. Well, that's not actually a valid thing anymore. So what we want to do is we want to find that reverse call. And I want to find them in files. So if I do Control Shift F, it will allow me to do that. And then I can, and if you're on Mac, it's Command Shift F. I'm going to go ahead and just add a folder in here, the folder I want to search, which is try Django 1.10, src. We'll hit select folder, and I'm just going to import or look for reverse. So all instances of reverse I need to change now. So it looks like I only have one, well, two, but mainly one. So we've got our Django hosts. That one's one of them. So that is something we haven't upgraded yet, which we might have to. But Django hosts, of course, is that third-party package. So that might literally be the only place that I need to change it. So let's go ahead and upgrade Django hosts. And what do I know? What do we see here? Django hosts is right in there. So if I do pip install, well, let's actually look for that package name just to double check it. It's Django-hosts. So pip install Django-hosts -- upgrade. And this will upgrade it to Django host 3.0. We run make migrations. Okay, so that all goes away. But if you were concerned or looking for Django URL or Django's normal now reverse versus core.url resolvers, it's literally from Django.urls import reverse. That's the literal new reverse way to do it. So it's just a change where you actually import it. Okay, so now the next issue is this positional argument on delete. So when we jump into our models, which is actually where I am, if you have any foreign keys, then you're going to have to add something called onDelete, this onDelete method. And I think it's in my analytics, and there it is. Okay, so right here is a foreign key, so it's a one-to-one field. And it actually does show you that, hey, models.py, line 17, it's showing me where that actual error is. Right, and it's saying that it needs a positional argument for onDelete. Granted, I could search for all the one-to-one fields, the foreign key fields, and find something for onDelete. You don't actually have to worry about many-to-many. Okay, because many-to-many doesn't work that way, essentially. So one-to-one and foreign key, we have to add in a new parameter here called onDelete. Now, we can always look at our migration. So if I go to migrations into initial, I see that I already have there's already something for onDelete. So by default, Django used to just declare this for you, and you didn't have to change anything. I think the reason that they now require you to write onDelete is so Django knows that to how you want it to be handled, how you want onDelete to work when you delete this item. So what that means is the foreign key item. So like in this case, it's a cur URL, but sometimes it's a user, sometimes it's just another object of Django. Sometimes you want to keep that new object, right? So if I deleted this URL, all of the click events associated to it could be deleted too, or at least that's what happens by default. That's what cascade means. So by default, it's actually models.cascade, just like that. That's what the default is. So what I actually want to do is just say We'll add two parameters here. We'll say null equals to true. So I'm allowing it to be empty in the database. So that means that I can change this from cascade to set null. So all that means is the click event, or whatever this model is, will stay in my database if that URL or that object is deleted. So I'm going to go ahead and save that and run make migrations. And there we go. We did it. And so then python manage.py, migrate, I hit enter. Cool. So my migrations, my models seem to be okay. I see that I have some URLs, an issue, right? So it says your URL pattern slash has a root beginning with slash. Remove it because it's unnecessary. Oh, thank you, Django, for this warning. That's pretty awesome. So let's go ahead and look at those URLs again. So that means that I can just have an empty string here. Save that, and let's run the server and just take a look. Okay. Refreshing here. Looks like it's working fine. If I go into admin, that also seems to be working fine. Cool. So that means that those two worked. Those are the paths now. And then the shortcode, I actually don't know what the password is for this one. So how do I change that? I'm just going to go ahead and do python manage.py, create super user, and we'll just make up a user. Oh, that user's taken. So jcfe and empty. And I'll just, write whatever password. Doesn't really matter here because we're just testing stuff out, playing with things. So there we go. And now I can look at my URLs. Here's a variety of different URLs. There's the shortcode. I'm just going to test out that shortcode, which is right here, right? So I just append it to the end of it. So that means that I can go to 1.2.7 and then just bring in that shortcode. And this, in theory, should redirect me. I hit enter, and it does. So it redirected me to a Python project that we have on Coding for Entrepreneurs. And then if we look at my analytics, I should see that there's a click event there. And what do you know? There was. And again, I can do that one more time. Same thing. And this should have auto incremented that click event, and it does. Cool. So it's now updated, and I think we're probably done. I actually don't think that there's anything else that we really need to upgrade. There might be, but I'm pretty sure that this one is a very, very simple project, so I don't necessarily have to upgrade it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go to joincfe.com/blog and look for the Django 2.0 related stuff in the blog. So Django 2.0, just do a quick search for that. And we've got our regular expressions if you want to learn more about that, for both how they work and common ones. That's interesting if you're interested in more Django regular expressions. The next thing is Django version 2.0, a few key features. This is hopefully a useful guide to see how certain things may have changed. Now, of course, there are release notes with Django, but these are something that I've gone through and made sure that we know about these things. The isAuthenticated method is now a property of the user model. So I want to search out for that isAuthenticated with a entire site search, and I have 0 matches in this case. We already did on delete. Middleware classes and now just middleware, so let's double check that. I think we don't have a problem there because Django didn't get mad at us at all, but let's just double check. Middleware classes, of course, is in our settings file, our settings module, and there it is. It's just middleware. That's fine. Okay, great. And then scrolling down, namespacing. We didn't really have any issues with this, so check out our upgrading Django 1.11 to Django 2.0, or try Django 1.11 to 2.0 to see how that's done if you are curious. But that's it. That's it for try Django 1.10 to Django 2.0. As you see, it took us about 20 minutes to make this happen. Not a huge deal. I did have to experiment with Django host to make sure that that's working. And there are a lot of upgrades or improvements I could do to this project as a whole, such as getting the subdomains working and then also having an environment set up for my local environment as well as my production environment. But those are just things that weren't done in TriDjango 1.10, so it's not something I'm going to do here. But if you go through TriDjango 1.10 after TriDjango 1.11, you'll have a really good idea of how to do what I just said. Preparing this for production and having a local environment, and then, setting up a URL and stuff like that is only important for production.